Maya Angelou said, "There is no greater agony than bearing an untold story inside you." At International Women's Day in 2016, I took to the stage for the first time and told the world that I was childless. I really don't know what possessed me to do that. It was probably the most agonising moment of my life. But I realised, looking back, that it was the start of me allowing myself to be vulnerable. And it was the start of me owning my story. For those of you who don't know, in 2014, I was diagnosed with unexplained infertility. I could never have imagined that 2 words would have changed my life, but those 2 words turned my world upside down. There was no explanation, no answers. There was no closure or justification, just confusion. And with that confusion came shame. The shame of my past. The shame that I had 2 terminations in my 20s. And that led me to blame myself for not being able to conceive with my husband. Now, we all carry baggage. You know, there's things in our past that we don't want anyone to know about, that deep, dark secret that you're not going to hear. Sometimes that baggage might be the size of a suitcase, or it might be the excess luggage, that oversized bag that they want us to put in the hold because it won't go on the plane. For me, it was time to put my bag down. I opened it up, and I started to unpack all that stuff that I believed people would judge me for. Shame can be such a silencing experience. For me, it meant that I couldn't talk about my situation. I couldn't tell anyone what I was going through. I was too embarrassed. And in my head, I truly believed that people would say to me that I didn't deserve to be a mother. So I joined Gateway Women, which is an organisation that supports women who are childless by circumstance. And I did my grief work. For me, that was writing a letter to my younger self, telling her that she was forgiven, that I forgave her for the decisions she made in the past. I also wrote a letter to my unborn children, and I told them how much they were loved, and how much I wished I could have seen what they looked like, and watched them grow up. For other women, it might be decluttering their living space. It might be creating a shrine in a special part of their home, making a memorial in the garden. It might be finding a therapist or finding a support group, but there are many ways that we find to deal with our grief. For me, this helped me to embrace my shame and reframe what it meant for me. Now, it's not easy to talk, I know. I mean, when I first did it, I was hyperventilating in the corner at the side of the stage, and I truly believed the paramedics was going to have to come and get me. I just didn't know how I was going to do it. But I got up on that stage and I spoke. I told my truth and I owned my story. And it was amazing. It really was. The positive responses I received, I couldn't have imagined that would have happened. And I know not everyone's going to do what I do. But I just want to say that being able to talk to your family and friends about stuff, it can be such a empowering experience. Now, it is difficult because I was bombarded with all the unhelpful advice that I really didn't need or I really didn't want to hear. And sometimes there can be judgments in people's responses. But being able to talk, being able to own up, can be such a freeing experience. And it can allow us, you know, I felt so empowered when I did it. A while back, last year, Jodie Day, who's founder of Gateway Women, asked me a question. And it was a question that really threw me. She asked me why black women weren't reaching out to her to talk. Now, this surprised me. There are 1 in 5 women who are childless in the UK by circumstance. So, you know, the chances are there are black women amongst us that are childless. There are black women that are grieving. And I didn't understand why my race stopped me from grieving or stopped me from even being able to talk to people. But I started to think about this, and I started to talk to my friends. And just thinking and reflecting on what they were saying, I started to realise how much pride we have as a race, how much pride my family have. The stories my parents told me when they were growing up in the Caribbean, when they came to England during the Windrush period. No Irish, no blacks, no dogs. You know, when you hear those things, can you imagine how much they had to go through just to survive? How much they held on to just to show that they were better than people thought they were? These things that they told us meant they reframed the messages they gave to us as children. And these are messages that we still hold on today. These messages go a long way to silencing us and keeping us bound. I remember as a young girl, I used to think that I had to be strong. I had to be better. I had to be different. I had to prove I wasn't what they thought I was or expected me to be. Don't bring shame on the family. What will the neighbours think? I wrote a blog for Gateway Women called The Black Woman in the Room. And I reflected on being an adult and my experience of being treated differently or being seen differently. You know, I'm an opinionated, vocal black woman, and I got seen as aggressive and angry. My white counterparts were passionate, and they really cared. When we're experiencing these things, it's really hard for us to then continue to talk, to want to share our experiences. I remember trying to explain the differences that I was experiencing, what I was going through, and it would get dismissed as, you're just being too sensitive. Oh, you're just overthinking it. It didn't really happen. Religion also is a way of silencing us. I found the messages of God knows best. It's God's will. He knows what he's doing. It went a long way to keeping me quiet. Dealing with white fragility and white privilege. Managing those emotions as well went a long way to keeping me quiet. But what does this have to do with fertility? The Women's Health magazine and Oprah magazine surveyed more than 1,000 women and reported that infertility affects at least 12% of women up to the age of 44. And studies suggest that black women may be almost twice as likely to experience infertility as white women. Yet only 8% of black women between the ages of 25 and 44 seek help to get pregnant, compared to 15% of white women. Black women are more than twice as likely as white women to say that they wouldn't feel comfortable talking about their fertility issues with friends, family, their doctor, or even a support group. These are specific factors that affect black women disproportionately. Uterine fibroids and obesity, for example, are conditions that negatively impact fertility, and black women suffer from these at a higher rate. Gabrielle Union last year, the actress, spoke up about her struggles with fertility and the adenomyosis that prevented her from getting pregnant. I recently found out I have adenomyosis, and this could have been a reason why I couldn't conceive. When black women do seek medical help for fertility issues, failing to see people who look like them in the leaflets or notice boards in the waiting room can further discourage them from pursuing treatments. For some women, it's their private sense of religion and spirituality that got them through. For others, the emphasis that church puts on reproducing and coupled with the lack of conversation around infertility made religious settings painful and complicated. The stereotypes that black women have don't help the fertility issues either, and they are real, they are persistent, and they are harmful. Through my research, time and time again, I found references to black people being hypersexual. There were beliefs such as black women are highly fertile. Black people don't struggle with infertility because black men and women breathe like rabbits. And it's something I used to hear a lot when I was in my 20s. The report even mentioned that there was one woman who was recounting experiences when she was younger. She hadn't been sexually active yet, but a doctor assumed she had many, many partners, and the issues she was seeking treatment for could be a result of that. Shame is silencing. It stops us from owning our stories. And without our stories, how can we change beliefs? How can we affect change? There's also the fixing phenomenon. I can't tell you how many times people tried to fix me when they heard about my situation. All the, have you tried that new medical research treatment I saw on the radio last time? I know someone who had unexplained infertility. They got 3 children now. Don't give up hope. Look at Janet Jackson. Have you thought of adoption? Jodie Day in her TED Talk said that pronatalism makes us believe that the only way to be an adult is to be a parent, which then makes it hard for us to claim our identity. Change happens one story at a time, one woman at a time. And this starts a chain reaction that breaks the shame and taboo. We feel less alone, less silenced, and less shamed. Owning our stories will bring the richness back into our lives, and it allows us to reclaim our existence. I've come so far since 2014. It's given me the courage to stand up and own my story. And because of that, I've been interviewed on many platforms, both in the UK and abroad. My greatest moment was being on Radio 4's Women's Hour. I'm also a trained facilitator for the Gateway Women Reignite workshops, and last year I ran the first Women of Colour workshop. I am an ambassador for the We Are Worthy Summit, and I took part in Fertility Fest last year. I have lost count of the amount of women of colour that have contacted me, saying that they just looking for someone who looked like them, who they could talk to, who would understand. There are stories of women that go to the Gateway Women website and they don't see faces that look like them, so they turn away. I heard a story of a woman who was so stricken with grief that she was desperate for help. She went to an event. She looked through the window, did not see one black face, and walked away. There are women that contact me just to thank me for my honesty and my authenticity. And there are white women who want to learn. It has been such a privilege to be accepted in this way, to create a space where not only mine and other women's stories can be heard. I persevered. I stood strong. I had my own miracle in 2016. My beautiful baby was born. Yeah, my book, Dreaming of a Life, came to life. And she looks just like me. So what's next? Well, I'm in the process of redesigning the format of the Women of Colour workshop so I can better cater for women of colour. I'm taking part in Fertility Fest this year at the Barbican Centre. So on the 27th of April, I'm taking part in Fertility Flight Club, and it's There's More to Life Than Children Day. And on the 1st of May, I'm on the panel for the Race and Reproduction talk. They say I'm the leading voice of the childless experience for women of colour. I don't know how that happened, but hey, vocal and opinionated. I'm also doing further research on why women of colour don't talk, and I'm looking at things like generational trauma and post-traumatic slave disorder. Yeah, it's real. It was very interesting to start hearing about how during the slave times, they didn't have support, they didn't have anyone who cared. No one wanted to talk through their problems, no one wanted to listen. When slavery ended, no one cared, no one wanted to talk to them. They didn't have the support, and no one wanted to hear. And we carry those things, those messages have been carried through generation to generation. So I'm very interested to see how those will play out. Brené Brown talks about the courage to be vulnerable, and in her research found that vulnerability makes you beautiful and is a birthplace of joy, belonging and creativity. Brené said, when we deny our stories, it defines us. When we own our stories, we can write a brave new ending. So I'm stepping out, I'm owning my story, and stepping into my brave new ending. Hello? Is that it? Is that it? Really? The reason you guys are thinking like, oh my gosh, you're going to have speakers coming up here and you're thinking like, oh my gosh, I wish could they talk longer, is because I've literally tried to pack and have packed like 7 hours worth into 5 hours, purely so that instead of you trying to get to God knows how many events, hopefully, not hopefully, there will be something here today that you will learn that you didn't know before. Okay? I forgot to mention that you all have a job to do. And everyone's like going, oh my gosh. Okay? Throughout the day,